Watching Kyle's unboxing videos again?
Yeah, he always finds the coolest... No way! A robot dog? Gotta ask where he got it.
Or use your Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Just draw a circle around the dog on your screen, and it shows you where to buy it right in the app.
Whoa, I just learned a new trick. And that for once, I beat Kyle to the next big thing.
Circle it, find it with the new Galaxy S24 Ultra and circle the search with Google. Get yours now at Samsung.com. Internet connection required. Results may vary based on visuals.
Hey there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 367 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. I'm your host this week, Jason Evans. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, I'm joined by Donald Wine and Sam Klein. Sam, how things going in your neighborhood?
Things are good here. We recorded yesterday, so not a whole lot has changed in Duke world or in my world, really, since the last time I saw both of you.
Yes. Even though folks will probably, I'm betting, they'll end up listening to this, tomorrow. We're recording Sunday morning. They'll probably end up listening to this on Monday, just in terms of when we're getting it out. Yes, we recorded yesterday because there was big news. We had a new member of the Brotherhood committed, Mark Mitchell, and Mike Elko, a new coach of the Duke football team. Too much news for us to wait. But Donald, by the way, I haven't welcomed you in. How have you been doing the past 24 hours, my friend?
I've been doing great. I just want to point out today is December 12th, and I just want to wish a very happy third birthday to my godson, Ethan. It is his birthday today. After we are recording here, I will go and celebrate with him for like the third time, because when you're 3, you get like 87 parties. But happy birthday to my godson, Ethan, and hopefully 3 is the year that we get to take you to Cameron. I'm very desperately working on getting you down there to see the GOAT before he walks off into the sunset.
What does one do for a third birthday party?
Lots of cars, lots of construction. He loves the construction rigs.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
So he obviously can't listen to this. So
Bob,
I will tell you guys,
Bob
I
the
got
Builder?
him.
Donald, Bob the Builder?
No. Just like just like
sites,
actual rigs, like actual construction rigs, bulldozers.
My brother and I, my older brother and I were so into that. Like, you could have just brought us to a construction site and let us watch construction happening like all day.
Literally during the pandemic, we had construction going on everywhere because there were no cars on the road. So literally for like activity times outside, safe distance, we would take him to the park by my place because we could walk around the neighborhood and he can look at all the construction equipment that was just lining the street.
Sam, I'm going to go ahead and say that a 3-year-old wandering around a construction site, probably not the safest activity out there.
No, not in
site. Not in the site. Yeah. We're talking on the street, on the sidewalk. Like our streets are destroyed because they were trying to clean them up, and they're fine. But all the construction rigs are still there. So he likes to look up close. We can't touch, but he can look up close. The DBR
podcast, where you come for advice about staging birthdays for 3-year-olds. We just know it's this is a core need of our audience.
I believe it.
Actually, what our audience really needs to know is what we're going to be talking about on this edition. We're going to give you a little exam break primer, so to speak. What the Blue Devils, we think, we hope, we expect, have been working on. What we hope, really, they've been working on over the exam break. What Duke needed to do to get better, because it's mid-December and Duke hasn't played a single game this month. And so we've got some sound coming up from Nolan Smith, assistant coach Nolan Smith, and we'll be chatting a little bit about what we think Duke has been working on and should be working on to get the team even in a better position, even though there are scenarios where Duke is number 1 again on Monday, but probably not. But anyway, and the other thing we're going to do for you folks is we're going to be previewing. Duke has some sort of our final pre-ACC season games coming up. We're going to specifically be previewing the game coming up this week against South Carolina State. We'll get to all of that in a minute. But guys, like I said, first of all, what does Duke need to work on? And, before we get into our own kind of stuff, let's hear from Nolan. Nolan Smith did a media availability just a couple days ago. And I was on the call, and it was very clear that Nolan and the team have identified a very, very specific thing that they think needs to get better. I'm going to let you listen. This is first a question by Steve Wiseman, and then a follow-up by Brendan Marks, friend of the podcast, and a wonderful writer for The Athletic. You will hear Nolan in both of these questions talk about a very specific aspect of the way Duke plays offense. Have a listen.
Yeah, Nolan. Hey, I wanted to follow up on the thing about the offense, in particular, half-court offense. You said that maybe better passing. Is that kind of the area where you're looking at? I mean, obviously, the last thing we saw was the second half at Ohio State, which didn't leave anybody with a good taste in their mouth going into this break.
Yep. Nah, absolutely. And that's really the game that we all sat down and watched together. And obviously, in the second half, we saw a lot of really the whole game. We saw a lot of things that we didn't like offensively. Whether it was movement and just standing and watching each other with the ball, or whether it was missed kicks. There was a lot of missed kicks where obviously a lot of teams going into each game is going to say, hey, we have to make Duke make shots. But if we make the right kicks and our shots are wide open, we know that we have guys that should be shooting close to 40% from three. But it has to be connected shots where it's a team shot, not individually. So just focus on that during this time has been a huge point of emphasis for our guys.
Brendan Marks.
Hey, Nolan. Yeah, I wanted to follow up on the 3-point shooting as well. That maybe is the only noticeable offensive weakness you guys have had so far. Is it a matter just of better spacing? Is it shot selection? And can you sort of walk us through the process of how you try and help the guys understand that and what is, maybe passing up a good shot for a great one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of that's just really a lot of film work, for me working with the guards, showing our guards how we can get better shots. And then when we are getting those shots, are we connected on them? A lot of that's communication. A lot of that's making the right plays, making the right pass, taking tough twos or taking a wide open three. Which one is the better shot? We feel like all of our guards can get their own shot, but is that the best shot? So just really focus on scoring together. Very often, Coach Shire and I, we try not to talk about our 2010 time and our playing days. We're retired now, but I actually mentioned that to them. I was like, in 2010, Shire, same with myself, we scored together, all three of us. One drill penetration kick. We have a good core of guards that can be exactly like that, but they have to see that. They have to know that they need each other to score, and just going one-on-one is not going to get it versus a really good defensive team. And as we get to conference, we're going to play against a lot of really good defensive teams. They're going to scout us. They're going to know our faults. They're going to know how they can beat us, what they're going to try to do to beat us, but we can't beat ourselves. So if their teams are going to force us to kick, that should be something that we're really good at. So let's kick the ball.
So I think, guys, the key word that we heard in there was this: kick. Duke needs to be better at kicking the ball. When we penetrate, Nolan says we're not looking for the open man. And I don't want to call anybody out specifically, but oh boy, Trevor Keels needs to work on this in a big, big way. In the wake of that press conference, Brendan Marks did a column for The Athletic where he's talked specifically about Trevor Keels kicking the ball when he penetrates into the lane. When Duke sets a screen for him and the defense is switching and making adjustments. And there's some amazing photos that Brendan Marks posted to show folks how Trevor Keels is taking contested shots instead of looking for the open man. It's really striking. If you have a chance, if you have an Athletic subscription, if you've done an Athletic subscription, get one, because it's worth it. Every penny of it. It's they do a great job of coverage. But Brendan Marks, I think, did a great job of breaking it down. Donald, I'll come to you first. Based on what you heard from Nolan there, other stuff, what do you think Duke needs to do to get better?
Well, it's funny when we discussed the Ohio State preview before that game, I mentioned that there is a play that they like to do that has a point guard at the top and four guys across the high, wing area. And they do kind of a weave around the 3-point line to try and come down. And then the idea is either to go in for the layup or, like you said, Jason, to kick out to a wing or to a guy in the corner for a 3-pointer. I told everybody that was something that they needed to focus on, because a lot of times they lose sight of the people on the wing, or the fact that the wings aren't shifting enough so that they're in the sight of the person trying to drive with the ball. That didn't happen against Ohio State. That obviously is one of the things that that Brendan Marks actually focused on in his article that you were just mentioning, Jason. So I think the kick thing is one that we used to do quite a bit, but it's all about shifting. One, the guys that are on the wing and in the corner just have to shift so that they're always within sight of the ball, that there's always a passing angle for them. The second thing is the person who has that ball, who's driving, has to recognize that there is multiple options for him to do. He doesn't just have to shoot it. He doesn't just have to try and lay it in or tomahawk it over someone. He can pass off to a guy that's slashing in from the wing, like a Mark Williams or Paulo Banchero, or he could kick out to the wing or to the corner where there's somebody there to shoot the three. We just have to be cognizant of that. And it sounds like Nolan Smith and the rest of the coaching staff were working on that over the break to say, hey, look, when you're in this position, know that here are your angles that you need to be watching out for, because they didn't do that well against Ohio State, especially in that second half where Ohio State was able to creep back into the game and then eventually win it.
When they talk about court vision, this is exactly what they mean, right? It's the ability to keep your eyes up and moving around as you're getting closer to the basket, which Trevor Keels a lot of times is initiating offense. When we say initiating offense, like he's got the ball a lot at the top of the key where he has an option to pass side to side, to dribble side to side, to pass down low, and we have multiple options for scoring down low. And as you're driving, figuring out, okay, where else can I go with the ball? This is something that he may not have. I don't know the ins and outs of the Paul VI lineup that he played on his last few years in high school, other than the fact that he was with Jeremy Roach, who also was a perimeter player. I don't know how much he was expected to get to the free throw line and look around and try to find outlet passes, because a lot of times the best scoring option was probably him continuing to have the ball in his hands. And as Brendan Marks explains in his article, there are a lot of options for Duke, and defenses right now know that they can crash on Trevor Keels because he's not necessarily making those passes. It's definitely something you work on. It's definitely something that takes time to develop, not just personally, but also as a team, because the other guys on the team have to be able to react to, okay, we know that whether it's Keels or Paulo Banchero or Wendell Moore, we know what spots they get to before they look around. And this is just the kind of development that they need that you don't necessarily get during the preseason. You don't until you start playing games together and you really get to see how everybody reacts once there's an opponent on the other side of the court, as opposed to just the guys on your team.
It's called the triple threat, right? Like every single time when you're a 5-year-old in basketball, you learn about the triple threat. You always want to be in a position to shoot, pass, and dribble. Not one of the three, all three. But when it comes to this particular play where they're driving down the lane, it has to be more than three options. They can't just lean on the shooting part. They have to also lean on the passing part. And that's where the two wings on either side, as well as the corners, come into play. They have to be able to see that when they're in that triple threat position.
By the way, I'm glad that this is what Nolan said they're working on most, because I think this is the thing that the three of us have been talking about a lot, maybe not in such specific terms, but we've sort of highlighted that in a weird way, the defense is ahead of the offense at this point in the season, which is usually not the case for a young team, but that is the case here because of so much individual talent on the defensive end. It's the offense where they're not making the right passes. They're not initiating for each other or facilitating for each other. We've noted that, overall assists are not high on this team. And it's good to see that Nolan Smith agrees, I guess, with the assessment that we've had early in the season of how the team is progressing.
Guys, Duke has the makeup to be a super efficient team on offense and defense. We are second best in the country right now. Number 2 at turnover percentage. We have no wasted possessions. Duke is getting a ton of shots. And on the other side of the floor, we're great at not giving up easy points. We lead the country. Number 1, best team in the land at opponent points off free throws. And that's because we're second best in the country at free throws as a percent of field goal attempts. And on our free throw percentage defense is insane. I'm not sure if you've seen it. Duke's opponents are hitting 57.5% of their free throws. That, by the way, that's not sustainable.
I was going to say, what is there a skill in that? I don't think so.
It's crazy.
We have an
Does it mean-
imaginary person who's standing right in front of the person as he's shooting his free throw. You can't see him, but he's there and he's doing great defense so far this season.
May I offer one theory as to why this might be sustainable, which is that Duke doesn't foul much, but when Duke fouls, they really make it count.
Perhaps.
Like if you were running into Trevor Keels or Wendell Moore or Mark Williams, man, or Theo John, I imagine that it takes a few seconds to sort of recover and get yourself back in. But I don't think that that's actually sustainable.
No. But the bottom line is we still are really, really good at not fouling very much. So you would think we have the makings of a team that should be super great from an efficiency standpoint. Like I said, I mean, the fact that we're second in the country at turnover percentage, playing at the pace that we play is really shocking. And it's a great thing from this team. So why aren't we higher, especially in offensive efficiency? It's because of our 3-point percentage. We only hit 32.8% of our threes. We're barely among the top 200 teams in the country. Again, Duke, one of the best teams in the land, is barely among the top 200 teams in the country at shooting threes. And then the other side of that is we take too many inefficient shots. Trevor Keels shoots almost between 2 and 3, almost 3, mid long range twos per game. Paulo Banchero takes 5 to 6 of those per game. Trevor Keels is only hitting 30% of them. Paulo's only hitting 42% of them. Those are super inefficient shots. And most of them are contested, not like wide open jumpers off kicks and things like that. So like Wendell Moore takes a pretty fair number of mid-range shots, but they're almost always wide open. So as a result, Wendell hits almost 62% of his mid-range shots. Look, you can take a mid-range jumper if you're going to hit better than 60% of it. The problem is we've got Trevor Keels and Paulo Banchero taking those shots and hitting, less than 40% of them. And it's something we've got to work on, not taking those inefficient shots and looking for ways of getting more wide open threes. This team is capable of hitting much better than 32.8% of our 3-pointers.
I talked at some point in recent weeks about how Paulo Banchero is really advanced offensively and reminds me a bit of Jabari Parker when he was at Duke, another guy who I think the team felt comfortable taking the long two. Generally speaking, you're not looking for that shot. Even if it's I like Paulo, who is, bigger than most other players and can get that shot off. Trevor Keels, who is not, but even Paulo Banchero, you're not encouraging him to take that shot. It's a last resort. You shouldn't be taking a 17-footer unless there's 3 seconds left on the shot clock and everybody is guarded. Not when there's 15 seconds left and guys are waiting in the corners and Mark Williams is still, getting position and might be momentarily finding it against the opponent.
It's the Cal Singler too. It's something that Cal Singler was very good at back in the day when he was playing. And right now, a lot of our guys are passing up open threes for the contested Cal Singler too. And Cal Singler was great at it, but he also was very much uncontested when he took a lot of those 2-point shots. Now there is a little bit more room because the 3-point line has been extended since then, but these guys have to figure out that open three might be a better shot metrically or just by the eye test than doing that dribble into the lane and then taking a contested 2-pointer from about 18 feet out. You might as well just go ahead and shoot the open three. And maybe that means we take more threes, but that means our percentage may go up a little bit because we're going to start making some more of those as the season goes along.
Yeah. I don't think based on what I've seen from this team, I don't think Duke can win a national title shooting less than 33% from three. It's just really, really hard to do that. Guys, I got a question for both of you before we get off of this topic. Was Trevor Keels' success in the Kentucky game maybe a bad thing because it gave him confidence to do things that he may not be super equipped to do it? And by that, I mean this. So he was 9 of 14 on 2-point shots against Kentucky. He, got to the rim with ease, but he even hit his mid-range jumpers. He hit better than 50% of his mid-range jumpers. He has yet to hit better than 50% of his mid-range jumpers since then. And he's still taking a lot of them. Just against Ohio State, he was 2 of 8 on 2-point shots, 0 of 4 on mid-range jumpers. Did he have too much success too quickly and then it maybe trick him Sam, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think that kind of outcome, especially against a team that is, like a team like Kentucky is like the perfect opponent to have this effect happen against, right? It's a big national brand. It was the highlight early in the season, sort of, the Duke Gonzaga game was more hyped, but as far as like opening night of college basketball, it was Duke versus Kentucky in the Garden, like as much hype as you could put on that game. And he was the star of that game.
And it's worth noting, I'm not sure we're going to play a team that has smaller, less physical guards than Kentucky, because they're
right. So the matchup was perfect. I remember, I can't remember if I've told this story on the show before, but my freshman year at Duke. And by the way, if you were at school with me and you remember who this person is, you should email us dbrpodcast@gmail.com to confirm his identity. But my freshman year, my friends and I, who lived in Bassett Dormitory, would go play basketball almost every night in the East Campus gym. And we had one classmate who I won't name, but I do want to know if anyone remembers this, he was very athletic. He wasn't very big. He's probably like 5'6", 5'7". But he's really athletic, and he had the ability to drive to the hole pretty much anytime he wanted, but he was very bad at actually hitting the shot. So like he could get to the basket with ease, and he maybe made 10% of these wild layups that he would attempt. But every time he made one, I would think to myself, shoot, now he's going to do this every single time. Like he's going to keep doing it. And it's so annoying because he's so talented, except in this one aspect of his game. So if you remember who this person is, please email me. He's now like a very successful person. I haven't talked to him in a few years, but that's exactly what Trevor Keels reminds me of here, where it's like, I hate that you like made this contested 18-footer. How you're going to take more contested 18-footers, or like, I hate that you just barreled straight to the basket and made the shot, because this is just not a repeatable strategy.
I think what you just said actually just feels into my pushback of this and saying that this is exactly what he was going to do, because he feels this is a part of his game, right? The guy who takes wild shots, like I used to take 40 footers every single game, just off the rip, one step inside half court, I'd hit one. And after that, people go, oh, wow, now I have to think about it every single time. And that's what he's trying to do, because his game is not necessarily to be efficient.
Steph Curry.
Right. It's more to make you
Steph
think
Curry of your pickup league.
Oh, I was. Absolutely. This is way before Steph Curry. I was the Donald Wine. Steph Curry was the Donald Wine of college basketball. That's how this was. But really what it means is that this was part of his game. Game one, you're not going with what the offense takes you or what the defense shows you or anything like that. You're trying to showcase your game, but also you're going with what's comfortable. And especially as a freshman, you're growing with what got you there, which means that this part of his game was already a part of his game before he got here. So he wanted to make sure that yes, I can still do this in college. Did it give him some extra confidence? Absolutely, because that's always it's going to happen. Like, it does not matter if he went 0 for 14. He still was going to be confident enough. If you're a shooter, what's the important mantra? Shoot or shoot. If you're having a slump, the best way to get out of a slump is to keep shooting. I think they're probably encouraging him to be more efficient with his shot, but to still maintain his game and make it so that he doesn't evolve it like immediately. He's taking it to the next level in being in college. And what he has to do is just focus on the efficiency part of things. This will be something that we are going to be working on all season. This is not a November or December problem. This is something that hopefully will be fixed by the time we get to March.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. It may feel like we're dumping on Trevor Keels. That's not the case. It's that kid has, unbelievable potential, and we've seen how great he can be. We just want him to be, I think, a little bit smarter about, some of the shots he's taking.
I think everyone, right? Like the whole team. Efficiency is a big deal.
I was very excited after the Kentucky game about his performance, and it didn't even occur to me that this was a potential outcome from it. So I'm with Donald on, I hope that this is an efficient part of his game, and I'm very much rooting for it to work for him, because I love watching him play. Duke has had a lot of really interesting, talented players come through the program the last few years. I don't know that Duke has had anyone exactly like Trevor Keels. Like among all of the interesting talents,
physicality,
Williamson, RJ Barrett and Brandon Ingram, all these interesting guys, Duke has not had a guy like Trevor Keels before. Like if Trevor Keels is like, if Grayson Allen was like much thicker, and somehow like more confident, I think that's where Trevor Keels' ceiling is.
Yeah, and I'm not dumping on him because I honestly just think he's in a slump. I mean, if you remember the beginning of the season, we weren't just talking about the fact that he was really good at 2-pointers. He was 8 of 11 for his first 3-pointers, and people were like, "Oh, he might be the best 3-point shooter we have on the team." That has, regressed to the mean a little bit, but it's because there's going to be moments during the season that everyone gets into a slump. Paul Banchero is going to have a slump. Mark Williams is going to have a slump. We just hope that it's not at a, critical time of the year or all in the same game. You want it to be where everyone goes through these slumps and these guys are going to figure out a way to work themselves out of it. When shooters get into a slump, they will shoot the ball. They will do the same shots they will do. They will go to the line. They will do everything that they know to do, because eventually those shots will start falling in, and that's where you gain the confidence to keep shooting.
Duke put out a video the other day commemorating whatever anniversary it was of the JJ Redick versus Texas game. And we were reminded
in MSG.
Yeah, that's right. And we were reminded that despite JJ scoring 41 points in that game, he missed his first 2 shots. So
yeah, that was actually in the Meadowlands, I believe, that game.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was like one of the last games I remember in the old Meadowlands, like before Prudential Center opened. But yeah, that was. I still remember betting my brother in that game. I won that bet.
It was a good one. That game is a great memory.
But by the way, so we're done talking about what we think Duke's been working on over the exam break. It's worth noting that hopefully they've been working on exams. We should, in the next few days, we will probably find out. Hopefully this is a uneventful time for Duke, but guys who get in trouble on their grades, this is when you find out about it. Again, it is very much our hope that there won't be any news there. And then the other thing to mention really, really fast before we go away is hopefully they've been working on AJ Griffin, who, is finally healthy and hasn't been integrated into the team in the way we really had hoped and expected. And this was a prolonged break where hopefully he's been able to get involved with the team a little bit more.
Nolan Smith was asked in that press conference about AJ Griffin specifically, and Nolan said, we're not going to tee up the audio for it, but Nolan basically said that we've got a 7-man rotation right now. If AJ Griffin gets to the level that the coaching staff expects him to, it's an 8-man rotation, and that there is space for him. I think that the nice thing here is that AJ can kind of sub in for a lot of different guys. It feels like the roster is pretty malleable. If he's subbing in for Wendell Moore, if he's subbing in for Trevor Keels, if he's subbing in for Paulo Banchero, there are a lot of spots for him to plug into this roster. So it's a rotation spot for him to lose or for him to just not gain. And I don't think it meaningfully hurts any of the other guys in the rotation if all of a sudden AJ is able to contribute 20 really productive minutes a night.
And he could sub in for Jeremy Roach with the amount of ball handlers we have on this team. Having him out of the game doesn't necessarily detract a little bit because we still have 3 more ball handlers on the court with AJ in the game.
All right, so guys, we've talked about all the things we hope and expect that Duke has been working on. Our first chance to see if any of those things have changed, if any of those things have evolved, will be coming up this week on Tuesday against South Carolina State, a preview of what to expect in that game coming up right after the break. All right, so we're back, and it's time to look ahead to Duke's next game on Tuesday. They play the South Carolina State Bulldogs. Gentlemen, this is the worst team that Duke's going to play all year. I don't know how to say that other than that. This team is 345 in KenPom. I believe there are 357 teams in Ken Pomeroy's rankings. They're 345th. Wow. So let's get to a little bit of a preview. Sam, I tell you what, why don't you tell me what you know about South Carolina State?
Man, South Carolina State does not have much of a chance against Duke on Tuesday. I somewhat bemoan.
Right, you don't want to disrespect them, but
no, I don't. But like, I mean, look at the look at their numbers here. They've got the 341st best offense and the 338th best defense, according to KenPom. It's not even like they do something really, really well that is going to offset this. I guess they do take a lot of free throws. That's good for them. So they are drawing contact. They've got a pretty good offensive rebounder in Daquan Williams. He's got a very strong offensive rebounding rate, but otherwise there's not a lot of talent on the roster that makes you think that there's a guy. There's no Eric Maynor on this team that's going to take over the game and upset Duke. So I don't want to make it seem like it's that foregone of a conclusion, but there is something to be said for, look, it's nice that Duke is scheduling teams from from some of the HBCU conferences, that they're bringing them to Durham, and that it's not just NC Central that gets to do this. But I do really wish that Duke would be scheduling games against opponents who are likely or in the hunt conferences, which I don't think South Carolina State is. So this is actually going to be a conversation than the one that we're going to have this week as Duke tees up games against Appalachian State and Cleveland State, who also aren't ranked very highly. They're like in the mid hundreds in KenPom, but these are at least the Stephen F. Austin type of teams that come into Cameron thinking like, all right, we can do all the right things here and potentially knock off a really strong Duke team. I don't think South Carolina State has that capability.
Yeah, and let me give you a couple efficiency things to understand how much this team struggles. They hit exactly a third of their threes, which is, it's okay. It's not great.
It's kind of what Duke does, though.
Yeah.
So
right.
Maybe this is going to be a brick fest.
Yeah. But they're one of the worst 2-point shooting teams in all of the country. They only hit 40.7% of their 2-point shots. That is really, really bad. By comparison, by the way, Duke hits 55% of their 2-point shots. And look, we just came off complaining. The three of us complained about the fact that Duke takes some pretty inefficient 2-point shots. We still hit 55% overall, and they only hit 40% of their 2-point shots. They're pretty good at not turning the ball over. And like Sam said, they get to the free throw line, but on defense, they give up too many offensive rebounds and they foul a lot. They put their opponent at the line a lot. I want to note that they have played one other Power 6 opponents. They played UGA, Bulldogs versus Bulldogs. It was actually a reasonably competitive game. Georgia was only leading that game by 5 points with 12 minutes to go. Now, Georgia's not a top team in the SEC, but they are a legitimate SEC team, and it was a reasonably competitive game into the second half. The Bulldogs the Georgia Bulldogs ended up winning it by 16 points. They pulled away late, but maybe that's a sign that South Carolina State is capable of playing with a Power 6 opponent. I don't know, and it is worth noting. Two other real quick things worth noting. One is this game begins a gauntlet for them. I'm not sure if you guys noticed this. They play 5 games in 8 days, starting with this Duke game. They play on Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. 5 games in 8 days. That is running up to Christmas. That is murder for a team. I wish we were in the middle or the back end of that, but we're not. But the other thing to note, we always pay attention to this. Teams where Duke can score 100 points. South Carolina State, in addition to being bad on offense and defense, they play at a really fast pace. They're the 20th fastest. Again, the 20th fastest team in all of Division I. They shoot the ball really fast on offense. And that is a formula, I think, for Duke to get over the 100-point mark.
Getting blown out.
Yes, it's for getting blown out, but also for Duke to get over the 100-point mark. Which one of us has 2 on the 100-point thing? I think I only had 1.
Let me go back and open it up while Donald gives his preview.
Go ahead, Donald.
Yeah, well, I think this is obviously a prime opportunity, but I'm not going to ink it because they've only allowed 100 points once this year with all of that you just spoke about, and that was 106 points to Charleston. I will note they have played another set of Bulldogs other than Georgia. They played the Citadel. They lost by 12 in overtime, which, as all of you out there know, is very, very hard to do. They also play the Citadel at the tail end of this murderer's row gauntlet that Jason just described. So the thing about this team that I want to stress to folks out there is, despite the fact that they're not good, I think Jason gave some reasons why we should make sure that we don't overlook them, because like I said, they did play Georgia fairly well, played them pretty tough. They may have lost, but they played them pretty tough. They played the Citadel pretty tough. And the Citadel is not, as we know, we did beat them pretty well, but they were a team that hung in there for quite a bit. So the problem is the Cameron Lights. You bring someone into Cameron, their game elevates up to a level that they may not understand. It just so happens that most of the time, 80, 90% of the time, it is less than that of Duke's, right? So we still have to make sure that we, in this 3-game stretch, of which the last 2 teams are much better than this one that we're going to face on Tuesday night, we still have to make sure that these guys focus in and zero in on some of the things that we just talked about before the break, all those things that they were working on over the break, and deploy them against South Carolina State to see how they work and make sure that they can get out of this game running away so they can put their focus towards the other 2 games.
By the way, wanted to highlight that South Carolina State's head coach is a guy that maybe middle-aged basketball fans will remember. It's Tony Madlock, who played at Memphis in the early 90s and was on the Memphis squad that made the Elite Eight in 1992. So it's pretty cool. He was an assistant at Memphis under Penny Hardaway the last few years before moving over to South Carolina State this spring. And his son who is also a Tony, I think he's a TJ Madlock, is a freshman on the team. So that's pretty cool for them. Not sure if Jason would be the one, I guess, that would potentially remember him as being on being one of these old Memphis players, but a cool old baskbasketball name.
I vaguely remember him, not super well. By the way, speaking of Memphis, boy, that team is in a swoon. Remember when everyone was saying Memphis was going to be this great team this year? They've lost 4 in a row. It's been rough for Penny past few games.
Going back to the stats game very quickly.
Yeah.
So this is a big event for this game is big for the 100-point game contest. Jason had 1. Donald and I both had 2, and Duke's got 1 so far. So
I'm not feeling good.
This is the best opportunity, I think, points. Now, that being said, I'm looking at the rest of my predictions, and man, I am going to get rocked this year in the stats game. I said that Trevor Keels was not going to start 9 games this season. I'm not sure Trevor Keels is ever not going to start a game this season. I said that 9.
I had the high on that. Didn't I have the high on that? I basically said Keels was going to start virtually every game, right?
Yeah, you said that he's not going to start 3 games, and I think you basically were like, maybe he'll get hurt. But otherwise he's starting. The one where I'm feeling really stupid right now, I said that 9 ACC teams were going to make the NCAA tournament.
Ooh.
And
maybe 5. Maybe 5.
I am not right on that. That
the one thing that's helping the ACC is one, Notre Dame won last night, and the second thing is that the Pac-12 is beyond terrible, like even worse than they predicted, and they're predicting that maybe they might be a 2-bid, maybe 3-bid conference, which will help the ACC considerably.
I think those extra bids are going to the SEC. They're going to the Big 12, and they're going to mid-majors. There are some mid-majors that are going to do way better this year.
A lot.
Yeah.
I think in aggregate, the transfer portal ends up democratizing the sport a lot more, because guys who are good, not great, can very quickly leave programs and just go be stars at Dayton, or, insert your mid-major of preference here. So that's a lot of the upside is in NCAA tournament picks.
And honestly, the Gonzaga effect. I mean, Gonzaga's probably forcing people to look more at mid-majors as we go along, because Gonzaga can, they've proven they can play with the best in the country. And now people are like, oh, who's the next Gonzaga? Some of these teams out here who are picking off some of these, Power 5 teams, they're taking a closer look at them than they would in previous years.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up for us, I think, here on episode 367 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Guys, we almost got into a little ACC preview there. That's coming up, people. I promise you. We're going to be previewing the entire ACC. We got other Duke games to preview that are coming up this week. And of course, we're going to recap the South Carolina State game. And if there's breaking news, you never know. We're going to hire a new football coach or get a new member of the Brotherhood. Hey, things can happen, and then we bring it to you. But until those things do happen, we're going to say goodbye on this episode. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember, Sam said it earlier. We want to hear from you. Please email us, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. That's the email address. As we have said many times, we promise we will respond to every single email we get. I can't promise if you write us a long letter that we're going to respond.
Two topics that I want to specifically highlight for emailing us. One, if you email us about, we've gotten a few of these in recent days, and I appreciate that we get them, which is if it's your first trip to Cameron and you want to know where to go and what to do.
We get a lot of them.
we get a few of those emails, and I appreciate that we have some of that knowledge. You're actually better served looking at the DBR forum post about this, because there are all kinds of recommendations in there from lots of people who regularly attend Duke games, which none of us do anymore. Like I was like most recently attending Duke games regularly, but I was also a student where for better or worse, like the experience of being a student and going to Cameron is just completely different than when you're a member of the general public. So I encourage people to check out the DBR forum for that. And under the broad bucket of, if you have conspiracy theories to share with us, please share them. Because if nothing else, I like reading your conspiracy theories. I won't necessarily agree with them, but I do enjoy them.
Sam, please don't encourage the crazy.
No, I like getting the window into the, I feel like I don't engage with conspiracy theories enough. I think I'm a fairly like grounded person, and I think I should be exposed more to conspiracy theories.
All right, folks. So when you write to us with your conspiracy theories about what's really going on behind the scenes at Duke basketball, please title those to Sam.
Yes, please.
All right. Like I said, that's going to do. Hey, by the way, like and subscribe. In addition to emailing us, go out there.
Yeah, sure.
Like the podcast, wherever you're writing, wherever you're doing it, subscribe, give us a rating, give us a review. We want all those things. And again, thank you so much to all of you as we approach the Christmas holidays. God, it is a wonderful gift that we get to continue doing this for all of you and just doing what we love, talking about the Duke basketball team. So for Donald and Sam, I am Jason. Again, episode 367 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast in the books. Duke Band, play us out, take us home.
When was the last time you got a massage? It helps with everything. It helps with everything.
Your back may still hurt, but you'll feel better about it.
Yeah, you just feel better. I need to get a massage. I'm like well overdue for getting a massage. I think it's like one of the greatest things. Week.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm jealous. Maybe I'll just go this week. I am going to get a physical for the first time in 3-4 years this week. I think I'm getting to that age where it starts to become like necessary to do it nearly every year, right?
They like I went to the doctor the other day and they're like, "Are you here for your physical?" And I'm like, "No." They're like, "Are you gonna schedule your physical?" I'm like, "Yeah, I already scheduled it for January." "So you're not gonna do it today?" "No, my doctor told me to come in for something else. Let me go." I'm trying to see my doctor.
Yeah, I gotta get back on that train.
Yeah.
Welcome to the world of being old, Sam.
Yeah, exactly. Also nice to be back on like cheap corporate health insurance.
Yes. But Father Time still undefeated.
Yeah, exactly. So I gotta go take care of that. Damn. Before we start, South Carolina State, not a chance they're gonna beat Duke on Tuesday. Like no.
Yeah.
There is
Save it.
They're gonna be happy to be here.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yep. We got, by the way, do either of you have specific players or anything you want to?
No, have you seen? I can't.
Oh God, this is bad. We're definitely going to lose now.
I shut it down. Fire everybody.
If this ain't the outtake.
Fire everybody.
Oh my God. They played...
Yes, I would like to lead with they are not good at a lot of things. That will be what we lead with.
If Duke loses this game on Tuesday, I'm trying to think what I have to do.
Not get a massage.
Yeah, you have
I
to
might
cancel
have
your
to. I might
massage.
have to go get a massage immediately after this game if they lose. I'm gonna be so
Oh,
upset.
All right.
They did beat South Florida. Question mark.
South Florida's ranked like
250.
Yeah. That's not.
That's punching above your weight class.
They play a
It's
notable
100
number
points higher than South Carolina State.
Hey, there's nowhere to go but up. Really, like literally.
250 is like aspirational for them.
They did beat St. Andrew's Presbyterian.
Not a Division I school. They beat.
I was going to say, which is the. I'm pretty sure that's the private school that was next door to my high school.